Hello everyone, welcome to my Session 10 Teaching Memo and Session 11 Introduction. I hope you all are rested and rejuvenated after our 2-week break and ready to finish the semester strong. Dr. Laura and I had Easter dinner at her parents' house in Schenectady last week. She has a pretty big family with 4 siblings and 9 nieces and nephews. I thought I would share a picture of the group. And there they all are. There's Dr. Laura right there, and there's Sophie, Dr. Laura's daughter, my stepdaughter. So a big group, and it was a beautiful day. It was actually too hot to sit out on the deck. It was in the 80s. So I hope you all had, however you celebrate the holidays, I hope you all had a good time. The semester is quickly ending, and I have no more new assignments. So there are no new assignments in this this session's work. Everyone should check on their grades to make sure you're not missing anything. Especially if there were some, I believe there were some early discussion boards where people didn't upload their initial post, and I can't grade your discussion board unless you do that. Yep, your initial post has to be checked by SafeAssign. That is a process that I believe is consistent throughout the Touro Graduate School of Education. So you can't change your discussion board grades, as you know, because they're closed. But you can see if you've taken a quiz twice, or if you didn't upload a written assignment, there is no penalty for handing it in late. Because that's a grading practice that I believe distorts achievement. You should be graded on your work and not punished for handing work in late or say cheating on a test. Okay, there should be consequences for that, but it shouldn't be. You shouldn't use grades as punishment. And that's something, if you take my assessment course, you'll see how that works. Session 9, just wanted to touch base on the discussion board, which closed this morning. You all should be done with the lesson plan process by now after getting feedback from your new group. I posted some new resources and additional resources, so let's go look at those just so if you've already done your plan and you've uploaded it, I believe that's in either this week's assignments or the final week. There are some new resources in, excuse me, let me go to additional resources. And under lesson plan resources, I've added at least one new folder. But I wanted you to all have some information on research to support your plan, and also language demands that some of you struggled with. A lot of you struggled with giving research to support your plan. That is a necessity for the EdTPA and your commentaries. You have to support your pedagogy with some research. Everybody uses Vygotsky and Piaget, but there's a lot of different researchers that are much more modern and up to date and based on new research rather than Vygotsky. And I actually added a chapter from a book that mentions Vygotsky, Guided Instruction by Fisher and Fry. Fisher and Fry are two of my favorite authors, education authors. But this is a book on guided instruction, and I've included the first chapter here, which talks about Vygotsky and scaffolding, etc., etc. So, and I've also added a chart here for managing your research, and a PowerPoint by Jennifer Olson, who did this chart for managing research, that shows you how to refer to research in your commentaries, etc., etc. So. Good stuff that even if you've done and you don't want to do any more additions to your lesson plan, you can use that in your EdTPA for if you haven't done if you're not certified and you're doing your EdTPA. Okay. I closed the algebraic thinking discussion board and was very pleased with the interactions I saw. Many of you had great ideas, and that's really what I'm trying to do in this course, is to generate teaching ideas, giving you a bigger picture of what math instruction should be like. And it really is happening. Many of you are going and using your inquiry skills and finding some really good stuff. Many of you shared strategies like Mr. Odd, Mrs. Odd, and even that I mentioned last week. Catherine shared a story about a teacher she observed who used math every day. For example, when handing out pencils, she was asked the student, if each student in your group needs 2 pencils, how many would you need altogether? So those are definitely, that's algebraic thinking in action right there. Andrew chimed in with similar activities like counting how many steps it took to get to a place. Well, that's not all exactly needing algebraic thinking. It's still some good stuff. I shared a Math is Fun website, and I'll click on that now, and that really is what we should be doing. This is on the Fibonacci sequence. I believe I shared that with Rachel, and Rachel really became fascinated with it and really worked hard to try to understand exactly what that was. And she shared this a YouTube video on the magic of Fibonacci numbers with Arthur Benjamin, and he ends up, he talks about making math fun, and that we need to put the fun and the fascination back into teaching math rather than just doing worksheets. And that's why on your lesson plans, many of you, I critiqued you on just doing a worksheet activity. So this is it's only 6 minutes, and he talks about the Fibonacci sequence and shows how fascinating math can be. And he ends up by saying math is not just solving for X, it's also figuring out Y. Thanks, Rachel, for sharing that, and that was on the last day, so many of you may not have seen that. My hope is that from the major topics of this course, technology in the classroom, culturally relevant math, problem solving, algebraic thinking, that you will be prepared not only to teach mathematics to young children, but to engage them in exploring the magic that comes from the many strategies and concepts that we have discussed. And that's what it's all about. Rather than making kids sit down and do mindless worksheets, it's getting them to see the magic of mathematics, or some people call it mathemagic. So I hope that worked. There are so many good ideas shared in this, and this has happened in many of my courses, that you guys get me so excited that I end up creating more places for you to look to get more ideas. So I created a new folder in the session 9. Let me go into session 9 so I can show you. In session 9 course materials, you'll see another folder, ideas for algebraic thinking. So I hopefully to add to this. So these are things that you can use. There's actually a center for algebraic thinking, which I didn't know. So I shared their website here. Lots of good stuff there. Mathbook.com on sequencing, Victoria Caruso. I've added many of her sites here. abcya.com, patterns, Guess My Rule Game, all those from Victoria. Latessa Smith added this 4th grade factor game, and this mathwire.com, investigating growing patterns, got a lot of good stuff on it, and Victoria shared that as well. So you can see that this is pretty extensive. Some of the links in it don't work, but don't worry about that. There's enough of them that do. So you should check that out as well. There was no formal discussion on the session 10, but you did have to do your double entry journal on the 4 stages of inquiry, and I am looking forward to grading those in the upcoming week. In the session, there are no assignments related to the topic of assessment of learning, but this is very crucial. Many of you do not have a clear idea of what formative assessment really is. It's a process. And many of you believe that just walking around and observing is formative assessment. Formative assessment is a process. It's a two-way street. It's where you're gathering data on what your kids are doing, and your kids are gathering data on where are we going, learning target, where am I now, formative assessment, how can I close the gap, feedback. So those are the three big things of formative assessment. And that's why we encourage you to use a learning target activity, to do something midway through your lesson to see, okay, how's everybody doing? I'm going to pull these three kids over here and have a small group with them while others are working in their groups. So it really is using assessment to diagnose, to see where kids are, to get them seeing what they need to do to finish, and what you need to do to change your teaching a little to get those kids on the right track. So that's what it is. And whether or not you're aware or not, you've been exposed to assessment for learning during this course. And here's how. In your lesson plan assignment, you were given a rubric, which was explained in a video of how to create an acceptable lesson plan. I'm reviewing a student's grade now who's complaining about getting an F and asking us to review. So I'm reviewing this, and the teacher has no exemplars, has no rubrics, and how she's giving, on a 20-point assignment, how someone gets 10 or a 15, it just seems subjective. And that's where we get in trouble as teachers, and you have to defend your grades to a parent and say, well, here's the rubric, here's exemplars. So those are ways that we use assessment for learning. So it isn't like, oh, I wonder what the teacher's thinking. I wonder what she wants. You're allowed to submit a first draft and get feedback from your classmates and from your professor. You submitted a revised draft and got feedback from a new group of students before submitting it for a grade. Now, you're going to submit that assignment. Uploading it in the discussion board is not how you submit it for a grade. You'll see in the upcoming sessions that there is a place to upload your lesson plan as a Word document or a PDF file, so I can grade it. You are allowed to take quizzes twice, discussing the ones you got wrong. That's formative assessment, using summative assessment formatively. Finally, your assignments were not averaged. I didn't take your first discussion board and average it with all the others, divide it by 4 or 5, how many we had. That I weighted the first one less and I weighted the last one the most. So this last discussion board was weighted the most because by this time, you all should have a real good handle on what I expect and what makes for a good discussion board. So that's also part of the assessment for learning process, is that we don't average our grades. We take the last assignment and weight it more. Okay, your vocabulary in your own words is due coming up. We'll encounter the last of our vocabulary words. Assessment for learning is described in our readings. Most of you should know what the zone of proximal development is. If you read Professor Karpov's book, and I think everybody has to in Turo because he's a Turo professor, his book Vygotsky for Educators. I'm sharing a picture that gives a clear idea of the zone of proximal development. So it's the area between what a child can easily do and what is beyond his or her ability. So in between is that area that they can do with some assistance. This week, your only assignment is to upload your final draft of the lesson plan. So that's going to be uploaded in session 11 assignments. I've added some material, as I mentioned, that may help you with your EdTPA. Look at additional resources, lesson planning. You should also be working on the materials that are due in the last session. Vocabulary in your own words, and your final baseline survey, which needs to have citations. You should have been working on both of those throughout the whole session. So, technically your last assignment should be your easiest because you've been doing it as an anchor activity for the whole semester. Please, please, please take the time to make comments on my course. The evaluations have been in your assignments for the last 3 or 4 sessions, so please take the time. Don't just put numbers down because that's nice, but it really doesn't help me know how I can make my course better. should I have another session on science rather than have this last session on assessment for learning? Were some of those, should I take out one of the sessions that I did earlier? Those are the things that I really would like to know. So I also will have an evaluation discussion board that you can make anonymous comments to. So that will be available starting this session. But there will be an evaluative discussion board that you can add comments, and if you believe your grade is going to be affected by those comments, you can do it anonymously, but it's up to you. But I would appreciate your comments both on the evaluation and both on the evaluative discussion board. So that's it for this week, and I'll be back next week with my final teaching memo.